It's preparing the live stream. And apparently the YouTube one is going to be about 20 seconds behind. So yeah, let's see. All right. That looks nice. Okay, I think that's good. It looks like, oh, all right. I can start seeing like the chat. All right, I think I'm live streaming on YouTube, so we will see. All right. Piali no momashikawa keniki nitsutoke. Niyolpaki pampai I nitsutoke nikan naman. Hi everyone. How are you all doing? I'm very happy that you are all here today. Today we're going to be continuing our lesson. We've been if you're new to my class, just know that this is course number 2, which is more intermediate. I make assumptions about what you do or do not already know. If this is the first time and you feel like you may be lost in this class, it might be because you haven't seen my other 24 lectures, which are on my YouTube page at youtube.com/pakelistli. So if you're watching me right now on my YouTube channel, I believe that I'm live streaming, but we're about to find out if it's true or not. If you are watching me through live stream on YouTube, just know that I'm not checking the comments until the end of the class. So if you have any questions and you have comments during the live class, I'm not going to see them until the end. But for people who are watching me right now live on Zoom, you can ask me the questions, or you could interrupt me if you have a really good question, or you could wait towards the end where I have a question section. So now I'm gonna share my screen, and I'm gonna share the presentation, hopefully. If it works. And let me select the correct window. All right, here we go. All right, so today we're gonna be learning about class 3 verbs. We're gonna be conjugating these verbs in the past, present, and future tense. Class 3 verbs are the simplest kinds of verbs. So they make, I forgot how to do that. Class 3 verbs are basically the easiest ones to conjugate in the past, present, and future, and that's why we're going to be covering it first. In this course number 2, the focus of the course is for me to go through all the different types of tenses that Nahuatl has, and then we're going to essentially be talking about all the tenses. We're going to be starting with the past tense for all the verbs, and then we're going to be learning all the other tenses. The past tense is the hardest tense in Nahuatl. But all the other tenses, many of them are based on the past tense. So you kind of have to know the roots. And some, I would say that the class 3 are the easiest. So that's why we're going to cover that first. But eventually we're going to get more and more complicated. I did change the structure of the class a little bit. I'm going to try to incorporate more stories, more whole sentences, longer sentences, so that if you're watching the class, you're kind of like increasing your vocabulary and you're increasing your knowledge. Okay, so we're gonna be learning tlenpanok, the past, tlenpano, the present, and tlenpanos, the future. And those are the words to say past, present, and future in Nahuatl. Okay, so if we're talking about today, we're talking about naman, naman. This word also means now. So just like in Spanish, the word ahora means today, but it also means now. Nahuatl uses the word naman to also mean now or today. Other varieties of Nahuatl do say a different word, which is ashkan. So if you hear the word ashkan, that might be a central Nahuatl variety. But in our variety, they say naman or aman or ama, something like that. But usually it's naman, something like that. Okay, depends on your variety. Yalwaya happened already. So yesterday, Yalwaya, and Mostla, Mostla. Okay, so Naman, Yalwaya, and Mostla. Also, please all let me know if you see the, if you don't see the slides, because I am sharing my screen, but I'm gonna assume you're seeing my slides if you don't, let me know, okay? So tlempanos, first we're gonna talk about the future. All right, so here I'm gonna give you examples. So, ya momachtia naman. Ya momachtia naman. Okay? Ya temachtia naman. Ya temachtia naman. Ya mihtotia naman. Ya mihtotia naman. Ya saniloa naman. Ya saniloa naman. Ya kitlaxtlawia naman. Ya kitlaxtlawia naman. Here it's focusing on this aspect, okay? This word tlaxtlawia is focusing on this action. Ya kitlaxtlawia naman. Okay? But if we talk about mostla, ya momachtis mostla. Ya momachtis mostla. Ya temachtis mostla. Ya temachtis mostla. Ya mihtotis mostla. Ya mihtotis mostla. Ya sanilos mostla. Ya kitlaxtlawis mostla. Ya kitlaxtlawis mostla. Okay, so if you noticed, we had all these verbs. They were all verbs that ended in IA or OA. Those are all called class 3 verbs. Nahuatl has 4 classes of verbs from class 1 all the way to class 4. Class 1 through 4, they all have certain rules of how you conjugate them in the past tense, but the class 3 verbs happen to be the simplest, and that's why we're covering them. So these class 3 verbs are just the IA, OA verbs. So we go from momachtia to momachtis, we'll study. Machtia to machtis, we'll teach someone. Mihtotia to mihtotis, we'll dance. Saniloa to sanilos, we'll speak. And tlaxtlawia becomes tlaxtlawis, we'll pay someone. Okay, so here's basically how the verbs change. So for these IA, OA verbs, you're gonna drop the last A and you're gonna replace it with the letter Z. So momachtia becomes momachtis, etc., etc. Kind of like you saw. So it's pretty straightforward. One of the biggest issues that I see people make when they conjugate the class 3 verbs is they try to just add the Z to the IA and say momachtias, mihtotias, and saniloas. So I'll tell you that that's a common mistake. So if you find yourself saying momachtias, mihtotias, saniloas, that's not the correct way to do it. You're supposed to drop the A first, and then you're gonna add the Z. It's basically the S sound. But because we're using the classical writing alphabet, that's why we're using a Z. But if you look at the practical alphabet, they use the letter S because it's an S sound. Okay, ¿Cuál? So the example that I gave you, that's how to say the future tense for class 3 verbs. You have to drop the A and then add the Z. However, for any other verb that is not a class 3 verb, all you have to do is add the Z to it, just the Z. So qua becomes quas. So I eat, niqua. I will eat, niquas. Poa, to read. Nitlapoa, I read, becomes nitlapoas. Niteki, nikteki, I cut it, becomes niktekis, I will cut it. Nikchiwa, I do it. Nikchiwas, I will do it. And istlacati, I gossip or I lie, becomes ni istlacatis, I will gossip, I will lie. All right, so any other verb that is not a class 3 verb, you just add the Z, but any of those class 3 verbs, you're gonna drop the A first and then add the Z. Okay, so here I gave you all the examples for any other verb, like the verb to read, nitlapoas, titlapoas, tlapoas, titlapoase, intlapohuase, and tlapohuase. Okay, so you notice that in the future tense for any of the verbs, when you just add the Z, it becomes future tense when it's talking about one person. So I, you, and he or she, right? Na, ta, and ya. But when it's plural, it becomes titlapohuase. So we add this se to it. And intlapohuase, and tlapohuase. You might be thinking, why is there a Z and a C together? And the reason that they have this weird way of writing it is because other varieties of Nahuatl don't say tlapohuase, they say titlapohuasque. And so this kind of looks a lot more like that ske, and because of that, they write it this way. However, just be aware that titlapohuase, intlapohuase, tlapohuase, this is the Huasteca way to do the future tense, but other varieties will say titlapohuasque. Then by say intlapohuasque or antlapohuasque or tlapohuasque. So in our variety, that K sound kind of got like deleted, but in other varieties, it's still there. Okay, so here's another example of a class 3 verb in the future tense. So I'm using the verb tlaxtlahuia to pay someone. So ni tetlaxtlahuis, ni tetlaxtlahuis, sorry, I will pay someone. Ti tetlaxtlahuis, you will pay someone. Tetlaxtlahuis, he or she will pay someone. Ti tetlaxtlahuise, we will pay someone. In tetlaxtlahuise, y'all will pay someone. And tetlaxtlahuise, they will pay someone. So notice that I'm using this te to mean someone. If you don't recognize that te, go back. I did do a lecture on this tetla and mo. There's a lecture called tetla and mo if you're wondering why there's a te here. Okay, so now we're gonna practice, and I'm gonna ask you, tlenki chiwas mostla. Tlenki chiwas mostla. Okay, so if you want to participate and you're okay with being recorded, you can unmute your mic and I'm gonna ask you, tlenki chiwas mostla. Okay. Naman alashosh namaka. Naman alashosh namaka. Tlenki chiwas mostla.
Naman alashos namakas.
So naman means now or today. So if you say naman alashos namakas, you're talking about later on today, he's gonna do that, right?
Alashos namakas mostla.
Mostla, So yeah, because I was asking tlenki chiwas mostla. What's he doing tomorrow? Not naman. Okay, ¿cuál? So mostla alashos namakas. Mostla alashos namakas. ¿Cuál? Naman amoshpoa. Naman amoshpoa. Tlenki chiwas mostla.
Mostla amoshpoas.
¿Cuál? Mostla amoshpoas. Mostla amoshpoas. ¿Cuál? Naman, okay. Ya mihtotia y selti naman. Ya mihtotia y selti naman. Tlenki chiwas mostla.
Mostla mitotias y setli.
So remember with the IA verbs, you have to drop the A. So it is na mihtotias.
Mitotis.
¿Cuál? Ya mihtotis y selti mostla. Ya mihtotis y selti mostla. Now you're probably wondering what this iselti means. Iselti means by herself. Or by no selti, myself, mo selti, yourself, etc. This is like when you're by yourself. So ya mihtotis iselti mostla. She will dance by herself tomorrow. ¿Cuál? Ya nechtlaxtlauia miak naman. Ya nechtlaxtlauia miak naman. Tlenki chiwas mostla.
Ya nechtlatlawis miak mosla.
Kuali, you got it, yes. Ajá. Ya nechtlaxtlawis miak mostla. Kuali. Okay. Inihuantin moishmati naman. Inihuantin moishmati naman. Tlen kichiwase mostla.
Mosla inihuantin moishmatise. Mostla.
Kuali. Ajá. Yeah, Kuali. So you put mostla at the beginning, you could put it at the beginning. So inihuantin moishmatise mostla. I hope that the meaning of moishmati is clear, but if it's not clear, you can ask me later what it means. But moishmatise. All right. So I think that was pretty straightforward. And actually the future tense, in my opinion, is the easiest in Nahuatl. That's why it's like literally a couple of slides. Because you just add the Z or the se, that's it. But what gets complicated in Nahuatl is tlempanok, the past. Okay. So I'm going to give you examples of how to create the past Ika Nahuatl. So ya momachtia naman. Ya momachtia naman. Ya temachtia naman. Ya mihtotia naman. Ya saniloa naman. Wan ya kitlaxtlawia naman. Kuali. Pero yalwaya ya momachti yalwaya. Ya momachti yalwaya. Ya temachti yalwaya. Ya temachti yalwaya. Ya mihtohti yalwaya. Ya mihtohti yalwaya. Ya sanilo yalwaya. Ya sanilo yalwaya. Ya kitlaxtlawi yalwaya. Ya kitlaxtlawi yalwaya. Okay? So one way to do it in the past is this kitlaxtlawi, okay? But there's another way to do it for these class 3 verbs. And this other way is ya momachtihki yalwaya. Ya momachtihki yalwaya. Notice that the stress of the word changes because now the second to the last syllable is different. So the other one was ya momachti yalwaya, and this one is ya momachtihki yalwaya. Ya temachtihki yalwaya. Ya temachtihki yalwaya. Ya mihtotihki yalwaya. Ya mihtotihki yalwaya. Ya sanilohki yalwaya. Ya sanilohki yalwaya. Ya kitlaxtlawihki yalwaya. All right. So as you could tell from the first set of 5 slides, when you have momachtia to create the past tense for these class 3 verbs, you're gonna take away the A and you're gonna add the H. So basically that means you're gonna replace the A with an aspiration. So it becomes momachti, momachtia becomes momachti. Machtia becomes machti. Mihtotia becomes mihtoti. And notice that that removing the A and adding the H changes the emphasis of the word. So here we have mihtotia, the I, the ia is the loudest. But now when you take away the A, that I is no longer the second to the last syllable. So it changes to mihtoti. Now the O is the highest one. So be aware that in Nahuatl, removing things from the end may change the emphasis of what the word sounds like in the past tense. So here it's mihtotia, and here it's mihtoti, mihtoti. Okay, saniloa becomes sanilo, and tlaxtlawia becomes tlaxtlawi. Notice that these verbs have this space in front of them because these are transitive verbs and they require an object all the time. So they're not really ever by themselves. Okay, but as you saw, these class 3 verbs have 2 ways of creating the past tense, and either way is okay. Neither one of them is better than another one. It's just that this one with this key form, This is more common in the Huasteca region. So they're more likely to say momachtihki instead of momachti. So momachtihki, machtihki, mihtotihki, sanilohki, tlaxtlawihki. And this other form, which is momachti, machti, mihtoti, sanilo, tlaxtlawi, this form is valid in the Huasteca, but it's also valid in other varieties of Nahuatl. So this has a wider like use. But either way, whichever one you use, the other varieties, the other speakers will still understand you because Huasteca has a lot of speakers and they generally can understand Huasteca Nahuatl with no problem. So you can use either one of them. ¿Cuál? So that's why I have it in parentheses, because you could say nimitohti, or you could say nimihtotihki, timihtohti, or timihtotihki, mihtoti, or mihtotihki, timihtotihke. So this is the plural form. Now notice that this ke is not in parentheses here. This ke is required in the plural. So it is always timihtotihke, like that. Timihtotihke, imihtotihke, and mihtotihke. Okay, so you must put this ke to make it a plural form. All right, so now I'm gonna show you a sentence. Well, I believe, yeah. I'm gonna tell you a story at the beginning, and then I'm gonna go sentence by sentence, and then I'm gonna ask you tlenquitos neki. Hopefully you know what that means, but if you don't, you'll have to ask me. And then I'm gonna ask you xipatla y catlempanos. Convert it into the future. Xipatla y catlempanos. Okay, so I'm gonna start this story. It's a short story. It's not even long. It's like 2 slides, and I just made it simple and straightforward, I think, hopefully. All right, so I should have capitalized that one. Nihpantia miak. Oh, sorry. Nihpantia miak tomin ipanohtli. Nimoillia, tlen nihchiuas ika tomin. Nikuika nochan wan niktlatlanilia nonansin. Okay, if you don't know what this means, don't worry. We're going to go sentence by sentence. All right. Oh, so that was a mess up from the presentation, but it was supposed to start with setonati kemaninehnemi, and then the rest of the story. Okay, wan nechnanquilia, shinechkowili tlakuali. Niknanquilia kuali, tlentichneki. Nechilia, nikneki chiltlaxkali. Nihkowilia chiltlaxkali. Okay, so you may or may not be lost, but don't worry, we're gonna go sentence by sentence. Okay, that was another glitch right there. Oh, I need to fix that. But basically, the story should have been Nikuika nochan wan niktlatlanilia nonansin, and then tlenihchiwas ikanotomin. That should have followed, but you could look at these slides later and it'll make more sense. Okay, so we're gonna go sentence by sentence. So here it's gonna be setonati kemaninehnemi nihpantia miak tomin ipan otli. Okay, so it's pretty long, but you can break it down piece by piece. And I want you to tell me tlenquitos neki. And if you don't know some of these words, we can walk through them little by little. Eventually, you're gonna gain more vocabulary by reading more and more. Okay, so let's start with setonati. Does anybody know what setonati? Tlenquitos neki.
Is it one day?
Kena, one day. You got it. Setonati. And then we have keman.
When?
When, kuali. And then we have ninehnemi. Ninehnemi.
Walk.
I
Walk.
walk.
I walk.
Kuali, I walk. Kena. So setonati kemaninehnemi. One day when I walk. Okay, kuali. Nihpantia. Nihpantia. So I'm doing something, but what am I doing? All right, so I guess people don't know this verb. Don't worry. So pantia it comes from the word pano. Pano means for something to happen or something to pass by. But pantia means for something to happen to somebody or for you to find something unexpectedly. So here in this context, this word nihpantia means I found something unexpectedly. Okay, so nihpantia, I find something unexpectedly. And then what do I find? Nihpantia miaktomin.
Lots of money.
Kena, lots of money. Miaktomin. So miak, many, many, many. And then tomin, money. And then nihpantia miaktomin ipanohtli.
On the road?
On the road. This word otli can mean path, it can mean road. It's very broad. So it could mean road, it could mean like a path or the way on your way to walking to something. It's ambiguous in Nahuatl, but it could also mean road. Yes. So overall, this means one day, setonati keman, when, ninehnemi, I am walking, nihpantia, I find, unexpectedly, miaktomin, a lot of money, ihpanotli, on the road, on the path, on the way. Okay, kwali. All right, so now, take the sentence, Juan chikpatla ika tlempanos. So I hope you understand those instructions, but if you don't, say na. Say ashnigmati. Tlenkitos neki.
Setonatis keman nineknemis nikpantis miyak tomi ipan otli.
Quali. So the only thing that I noticed though is that you said setonatis like tonati was a verb, but tonati is a noun. Unless I misheard you. But basically you got the rest of it correctly. So it would be kena. Setonati keman ninehnemis nihpantis miyak tomin ipanotli. One day when I will be walking, I will suddenly find a lot of money. I know it's a weird story, but trust me, it makes this will make sense later. Okay, ¿cuál? Nimoillia tlenich chihuas ikatomin. Nimoillia tlenich chihuas ikatomin. So tlenkitos neki inin tlatoli. What do these words mean? Tlenkitos neki. Let's start with Nimoillia.
I tell you?
I tell you is okay. What other guesses do you hear? Do you have? I said? Okay.
I said.
Did you say I said?
No, I say.
I say. Oh, okay. Very close, very close.
How about I tell myself?
Aha. Yes, it is I tell myself. Okay. So literally this is I tell myself. The verb is ilia, right? And the verb ilia, if you go back to previous lectures, you'll find out that ilia means to tell someone something. And who am I telling? Well, this mo tells you that I'm telling it to myself because mo is the reflexive in Nahuatl. It means an action is being done to the same person doing the action. So if I say Nimoillia, literally I am saying I tell myself, Nimoillia. But in Nahuatl, this translates as I think. So literally in Nahuatl, to say I think this, I think this, I think that, you can say, there's actually multiple ways to say this, but one of the ways to say it is I tell myself. So Nimoillia means I think. Like I think this. I think that you're beautiful. I think that the sky is blue. I think that, I think that your shirt is beautiful, etc. This, you could use this phrase Nimoillia. Okay? So I think, okay, I think tlenich chihuas ikatomin.
What I will do with the money?
Kena? But it's a question, right?
Oh, what will I do with the money?
So I think, what will I do with the money? Okay, so Xicpatla inin tlatoli icatlempanos.
Nimoilis tlen chihuas ikatomin.
Quali. Nimoilis. So the only thing that you needed to do was change your emphasis, because once it becomes Nimoillia, the emphasis of, because you dropped the A, the emphasis changes to this I. So it goes from Nimoillia to Nimoilis. Now this is the highest syllable. So if we go Nimoilis, I will think, Nimoilis, Tlenich chihuasikatomin. I will think, what will I do with the money? ¿Cuál? Okay. Naman, Nikuika no chan wan Nitlatlanilia no nansin. Oh, that should have been a comma right there, but whatever. Okay. Okay, so Nikuika no chan. So you may or may not know this verb Nikuika. Remember, I gave you a chart of a whole bunch of verbs. I grab all of the verbs in the lecture from there. So if you learn those verbs, which are very common verbs, that's where I'm getting these from. Obviously, Nahuatl has a lot more verbs, but I just picked those to keep it simple. And you could always look up new verbs in the dictionary. Okay, but Nikuikan anochan. Let's start with that phrase. Nikuikan anochan.
I will take my house.
Kena. Kena. I take it. I take it. So this, you have the nikuika. So the k is the it. So I take it to my house. Notice that there's no to here, because a lot of people will be like, well, where's the to? I take it to my house. Well, now what doesn't require the word to? It's implied inside of the verb. So the wika already indicates motion of I take. So it's already understood that you're taking it somewhere because it's inside the verb. Now there is a particle here. Mm-hmm.
Can you also say, I'll take it home?
I what?
I'll take it home. Can it translate to that?
It can, if you're using the present tense to talk about the future, yes. Kind of like in Spanish when you say lo llevo a la casa, but you're really talking about the future. In theory, yes, you could say that. But there's a more exact future in Nahuatl, but yes, it could be translated in the future, like you said. So this one is I take it to my house. And then, yeah, ¿cuál? One, Nichtlatlanilia. One, Nichtlatlanilia nonansin. So let's start with this one.
And
¿cuál? And then we have this Nichtlatlanilia.
I will pay my mom.
Pay is Tlaxtlahuia. This is not Tlaxtlahuia.
I will question my mom.
Yeah, there you go. It's you're saying as I will question, but here's like I will ask. But yeah, this is basically question. ¿Cuál? So here it's I ask my mom in the present tense. ¿Cuál? Now, Xipatla ika tlempanos. So change this sentence. Xipatla.
Nihuicas nochan Juan Nictlatlanilia Nictlatlanilias. Nilis.
There you go. Nictlatlanilis. Nictlatlanilis.
Nictlatlanilis.
Nihuicas nochan Juan Nictlatlanilis. So this, it is not Nictlatlanilias. So see, that's the most common error that I see. So if you find yourself saying ias, you're probably wrong. Pretty much you are wrong. I mean, if you say nias, okay, there are some verbs where it makes sense, but mostly you're not. Okay, ¿cuál? So I will take it to my house and I will ask my mom. ¿Cuál? Tlen, and I will ask her, Tlen nixchiwas ikanotomin, wan nechnanquilia, xinechkowili tlacuali. Okay, so let's, tlen kitosneki.
What I do with my money?
Kena, ¿cuál? So tlen nixchiwas, what? Nixchiwas, will I do in the future? What will I do? Tlen nixchiwas, ika, with, notomin, my money. And then one, nanquilia. So we know the one is and, but what about this nanquilia?
And she responds to me or answers me.
Kena, kuali. Yes, and she responds to me or she answers to me. Xinechkowili tlakuali.
And you buy
Buy.
and you buy food.
Okay, you're very close. Kowa is to buy something, but kowilia is something slightly different.
And you'll buy me food.
Kena. So kowa is to buy a thing, but kowilia is to buy something from or for someone. So here she's saying shinechkowili, buy it for me. Shinechkowili, buy it for me. And then it's tlacuali, food, buy me food, basically is what she's saying. Now what makes a distinction in a lot of verbs between if I just buy something versus if I buy it for you or from you. And so in the verb kowa, which is to buy, kowa, you cannot say shinechkowa. If you say shinechkowa, you're literally saying buy me, like I am for sale and you need to buy me at a price. Which that's how it would translate like as like buy me the person. But but kowilia, it's buy it for me. So here it's shinechkowili, buy it for me. Okay, shinechkowili tlacuali, buy me food, kuali. Now xipatla ikatlempanos. So it's really only one verb you need to change.
Tlenikchiwa ika notomi.
Nikchiwa is already in the future tense, and you would keep it in the future tense. Because he's saying like, what will I do with my money? So it's already in future tense.
Nechnanquilis.
Kena. You gotta change, you only need to really change the nechnanquilis. Notice you would not change this shinechkowili because this shinechkowili is a command and you can't put a, like you're saying do this, right? But you can't say like do this, but like in the future, right? So we would say, Tlenixchiwas, what will I do with my money? Ikanotomin. One nechnanquilis, and she will respond, Shinechkowili tlacuali, buy me food. Right? When you're changing this to the future tense, really this is the only verb that's going to change because in the whole grand scheme of the meaning of this verb, of this phrase, you changing these phrases doesn't really affect the tense that you're talking about. Like if you're saying she's going to say this, well, the thing she's going to say is going to be in whatever tense she says it in. So if she's going to say shinechkowili tlacuali, this verb is not going to change. And if you're thinking, or if you're going to think, what will I do with my money? This going to think part, the phrase that you're going to think is going to stay the same. That's why you're not changing those other phrases. Okay. Niknanquilia kuali, tlentikneki. Niknanquilia kuali, tlentikneki. Okay. Tlenkitosneki. So now we know this verb nanquilia.
Good. She says, good. What do you want?
Kena. She responds. So this says would be Niki, kihtoa, nikihtoa, or I say. But here it's niknanquilia. It specifically means I respond. I respond. Niknanquilia kuali, tlentikneki. Kuali. So you got it. I respond. Hey, good. What do you want? Oh, oops. Xipatla ikatlempanos. So you pretty much saw the answer. So if you're going to say this in the future, you're going to say, Mijnanquilis, I will respond, Kuali, tlentikneki. Well, good, what do you want? Notice I'm not putting this tlentikneki because I'm just copying the phrase that I'm going to say. Okay, Nechilia, Nechilia nikneki chiltlaxcali. Nechilia nikneki chiltlaxcali. Tlenki tosneki.
She says, I want red tortillas.
That's a good translation. Well, red is chichiltic, not chil.
Really?
So this chil tlaxcali is literally the word chili, and tlaxcali, tortilla. So I understand why you understand. This would be translated in English as like enchiladas, which is actually a Spanish word. But chil tlaxcali could be translated as enchiladas, or like there's a specific dish that they make in the Huasteca called chil tlaxcali, which is basically tortillas, which are in battered, I guess if you could say battered in Chile, which is like enchiladas. That's literally what enchilada in Spanish means. Okay, so she tells me, Nechilia, nikneki chitlaxcali, I want enchiladas. Okay, and it'll become nechilis, she will tell me, nikneki chitlaxcali. Okay, all right, and last phrase, nihkowilia chiltlaxcali. Tlenkitos neki nihkowilia chiltlaxcali.
I buy her enchiladas.
Tena. Nihkowilia, I buy her enchiladas, ¿cuál? And then Xicpatla y Catlempanos.
Nico Willis.
Tena, Nihkowilis Chiltlaxcali. ¿Cuál? All right, so in this one, because we're kind of towards the end, I'm not going to ask you Tlenquitos Neki because you pretty much already know what these what the story means. It's the same story. So essentially what we're going to do is when Xicpatla y Catlempanok, so convert it into the past. So it's the same exact story, but now this happened in the past. ¿Cuál? So setonati que man ninehnemi nihpantia miaktomin ipanotli. One thing I want to point out is this verb ninehnemi is a class 2 verb, and you have yet to learn class 2 verbs. So I'm going to translate the past tense of this one, but you're really only responsible for this verb right here, nihpantia. So xicpatla ika tlempanok inintlatoli. So if I currently nihpantia, I happen to find something, how would I say that I happened in the past to find something? Happened to find something.
Nikpanti.
Ah, Kena, that's one of them. Nikpanti. And then there's another one. That's one of them. ¿Cuál?
Nikpantikek.
Nikpantihki. So you could say nikpanti with the emphasis on the A, nikpanti, like that, nikpanti, or nikpantihki. Either one is fine. So setonati keman ninehnemiyaya. So this one, ninehnemiyaya, is one of the past tenses that means like was walking. So setonati keman ninehnemiyaya. One day when I was walking, nikpantihki, I happened to find miaktomini panotli, a lot of money on the road. ¿Cuál? Okay. Xicpatla ika tlempanok. Nimoillia tlenixchihuasikatomin. So now we're going to think about what happened in the past. Okay. So instead of saying that I did this now, kenihki moilia ika tlempanok.
Nimoili.
Oh, okay. Nimoili. ¿Cuál? That's one of them.
Or Nimoiliki. No, it's Nimoliki.
Yeah. You got it. So you got the Nimoili and then the Nimoiliki. Or at least I heard Nimoiliki. ¿Cuál? So the rest of the phrase doesn't change, right? So then Nimoili, I thought, Nimoili, Tlenixchihuas ikantomin. What will I do with this money? So nimoili or nimoilihki. Either one is fine. ¿Cuál? Xikpatla ikatlempanok. So this verb nikwika, it's a class 1 verb. So for now, I'm going to translate the past tense of nikwika. So ignore nikwika, it's class 1 verb. But you're only responsible for this verb, niktlatlanilia. So kenihkimoilia ikatlempanok.
Nictlan Tlanilia. No, Nictlan Tlanili.
Niktlatlanili. So you got to change the emphasis, the accent. So it'd be niktlatlanili. That's one way. This nili, this I would be the highest. This A becomes an H, and then it becomes niktlatlanili with an emphasis here on the I. And then there's another one.
Nictlatlanilki.
Niktlatlanilihki. So you do hear the difference, and notice that this word niktlatlanilia, when you drop the A, depending on which of the versions of the past tense you say, this word is going to have a different emphasis on a different letter. So when if we exclude the key and we just say the other one, the version without the key, we say niktlatlanili. So this I right here is the loudest, niktlatlanili. But once you add this key, this I becomes the loudest one. This one becomes the second to last. So when you say this one with the key, you're going to say niktlatlanilihki. So this is the loudest one, niktlatlanilihki. So depending on whether you put the key or not, it changes the emphasis of the word. But Nahuatl is consistent, where it's going to be always second to last. So one version is going to be niktlatlanili, and then the other version is going to be niktlatlanilihki. It changes the emphasis because second to last is different. And the past tense of wika is wikak. So nikwikak nochan wan niktlatlanilihki nonansin. I took it to my house and I asked my mom, and there's supposed to be a comma there. I didn't put the comma. All right. I asked, tlenixchihuas ikanotomin. What will I do with my money? Wan nechnanquilia xinechkowili tlakuali. So xikpatla inin ika tlempanok. So really, you're only going to change this one.
Nechnanquiliqui.
Kena, nechnanquilihki, kuali. Or you could have said nechnanquili. So tlenixchihuas ikanotomin. Wan nechnanquili. Xinechkowili tlakuali. Or nechnanquilihki. Xinechkowili tlakuali. All right. All right, in this next one, I want you to convert it and tell me the whole phrase.
Niknankiliki quali tlen tikneki.
Wali, you got it. Okay, nichnankilihki, quali tlen tikneki. Oh, I also want to tell you that this k sound in the Huasteca version, they generally pronounce it like an H, but other varieties, they do pronounce it like a C. And that's why we write it with the C, like a k sound. But in Huasteca, they're, I guess, they've demonetized and made it a little bit lower. So even though it's spelled niknankilihki, like that, we would say nihnankilihki, like they say it that way, nihnankilihki. But you could also say nik because some varieties say nik. So niknankilihki or nihnankilihki if you're not trying so hard. Nihnankilihki or nihnankili. Quali tlentikneki. All right. She responded to me, or I responded, good, what do you want? And then nechilia nikneki chitlashkali. So xikpatla ikatlempanok.
Nechiliki, Nikneki, Tlaxcali.
Vale. Nechiliki, nikneki, chitlaxcali. Juan, tlenquitos neki. Tlenquitos neki, nechiliki, nikneki, chitlaxcali. Tlenquitos neki.
And she said, I want, I was going to say chilaquiles.
Well, yeah. It's not she said, it's she told me. Because Nahuatl uses different verb between she said versus she told me. So, because if you want to say she said, you would say kihtohki or kihtoa. So Nahuatl makes a difference between ilia and ihtoa. And I used to make that mistake when I started, and that's why I pointed out to you, because I used to think ilia and ihtoa were the same thing, but they're not. Nechilihki, she told me, nikneki chitlashkali. I want not chilaquiles. Si put chilaquiles on my mind, enchiladas, or chiltlaxcali, which is specifically a dish. And then nihkowilia chiltlaxcali, chipatla ika tempanok. This is the last phrase. We're right at 8 o'clock. And don't worry, right after this, we're just going to do questions. I just realized I didn't put a summary page. But anyways. Nihkowili. Okay, so the past tense becomes nihkowili chiltlaxcali or nihkowilihki chiltlaxcali. All right, tlazokamati miak. I forgot to put a summary slide here, but I want to thank you for coming to the second class. I'm going to try to be consistent. And this class is probably going to have maybe like 15-ish lectures. I'm not exactly sure. So just be prepared. And tlazokamati miak. And now I'm going to leave it up to Tlatlanilisti. I'm going to look at the chat of the class first, and then I'm going to look at the chat on the YouTube in case I'm actually live and I'm actually getting messages there. I don't actually know. So we'll see. All right. So let's see if anybody asked any questions on the chat. All right, nobody asked. And let me go see on the YouTube. Okay. So some people did say, some people watching says Bibli Ridion said Piali. Efraim Peraza says, my son and I want to learn, but we're not good. We're not good doing it on our own. Can you teach us? Yes. Efraim, all you have to do is go watch my YouTube videos. I have about 24 lectures. So just go on my page, start from lecture 1 and go all the way to the 24th lecture. And there's homework associated with it. Do it and hopefully you'll get better. Somebody says, you're mestizo, right? The answer is yes. Do you teach Spanish? I do not teach Spanish, although I do speak Spanish. Yawili, oh, Yawili. How do you say nuts in Nahuatl? It depends what you mean by, if you mean nuts like nuts like crazy, you would say wee wee. That's how you say crazy. If you mean nuts like the actual nuts, I don't know. Say that. So let me look it up in the dictionary for you and see if there is a word. There probably is, but I don't know for sure. So let me double check. No es. No es silvestre. Okay. O nueces. Cáscara de nuez, cacalo, con nuez de la garganta, nuestra. Okay. Kitch. Okay. I was not I wasn't able to find an equivalent for Huasteca Nahuatl for the word for nut, like an actual nut. But I did find a Guerrero word for it, which is a wild nut would be cotololoctli, a wild walnut. That's the closest I could find. I'm not sure if there's a general word for it. They might just have specific names for specific nuts. I hope I answered that question well for you, whoever asked that question. But if you want to say somebody is crazy, you would say wee wee. Yeah, wee. He or she is crazy. I like the word wee. Okay. How did you learn Nahuatl? I learned Nahuatl from, I started learning with books first, and then I started practicing with Tlahtol Tapasoli in person. So that's how I started like thinking more spontaneously. So basically, Tapasoli is a language group in Los Angeles that was meeting every Sunday before the pandemic. But now that the pandemic happens, we kind of sort of meet on Sundays. But hopefully when everything gets back to normal, we'll probably have our class again in live person. But essentially, that's how I started actually practicing. But when I got really good at it, actually being able to spontaneously speak, was because I started doing one-to-one sessions with a native speaker who is fluent. And so that's how I was able to actually practice and like become really good. Now, my goal for you is to practice obviously with these classes, but if you want to get really good, you should practice live with a person, even if it's with other students, just asking each other questions and finding out what you do or don't know, looking up those words in the dictionary. And then if you have questions, ask me. And yeah, so I say the best way to learn or practice is practice live with a person. That'll help you like become more spontaneous and be able to answer on the spot rather than just constantly be writing and like not actually being able to speak. The best way is to actually practice with somebody. Hola, ¿me puedes enseñar más de este lenguaje? Me interesa. Isabella says, hey, and she asked me in Spanish, can you teach me more about this language? It interests me. So I'm gonna answer to you in Spanish and then I'll also answer in English. Si quieres saber más sobre el idioma náhuatl, puedes ver mi primer video que te da como una introducción sobre el idioma y te dice dónde hablan el náhuatl, aunque sí está en inglés y no sé si hablas inglés o no. Pero también puedes buscar aquí en YouTube, puedes encontrar varios videos donde te informan o te avisan o te cuentan sobre el idioma si quieres buscar más. También puedes unirte a grupos en Facebook y en esos grupos te pueden explicar más sobre el idioma. Pero hay mucha información, entonces solo búscalo aquí en YouTube. Yo así investigué. Y también busca libros, hay varios libros gratis en la red. For people who don't speak Spanish, basically, if you want to know more about this language, watch season 1, episode 1, where I give you a general introduction of Nahuatl, and I tell you where do they speak Nahuatl. But also, I recommend that you go on Facebook, join like Facebook groups. A lot of people give a lot of information on there. You could also do lots of YouTube searches. That's how I learned a lot of the information. Just search on YouTube. There's a lot of Nahuatl information. Yeah, that's my best advice for you. You could also find free PDFs when you join those groups and read more. Someone asks, ¿cómo dirías huellas ancestrales en náhuatl? How would you say ancestral fingerprints in náhuatl? Very good question. Let me look up the word for fingerprints. I'm not actually sure how you say fingerprints, but I'm going to look it up. Fingerprint. Oh, Nimoillia. Huella. Okay. When I'm looking up this word for fingerprints in the dictionary, cuando busco esta palabra para huellas en el diccionario, no encuentro ninguna equivalente a la palabra huella o ninguna que sea similar. I don't find a word in Nahuatl that is exact or the same as fingerprint. So I'm not sure how to translate it. I'm sure they had a word for it and it's just probably not in the dictionary. So I'd have to look, but there's a way for me to construct it, but it's gonna sound terrible. So I'm not going to do it because it's, they have to sign with a name, to sign with your fingerprint is the verb firmar, which is clearly borrowed from Spanish. So I could translate it as firmar, but I think that sounds terrible. So I don't know how they say a fingerprint. No sé cómo se dice huella en español, por eso no puedo traducir esa frase. pero no sé cómo se dice huella en Nahuatl. I don't know how you say fingerprint in Nahuatl. I probably have to ask my teacher. Tendría que preguntarle a mi maestro o maestra. Pero, y luego ancestral también es un poco difícil traducir. How about pasos ancestrales? Ok. Pasos, un paso sería paso, paso. A step. See if I can find step. Oh, one step. Here we go. Oh, say ikshik. Oh, okay. So yo lo traduciría como inimikshi, ajá, los pasos. Inimikshi, tlen tonelguayo. So yo lo traduciría como inimikshi o iikshi tonelguayo, como el pie o el paso de nuestras raíces. Porque la palabra ancestral no se traduce muy bien al náhuatl, pero estoy usando la palabra tonelguayo, que quiere decir nuestras raíces. Entonces yo diría iikshi, que quiere también decir pie, sería como el paso de nuestras raíces. Iikshi tonelguayo, algo así. Pero realmente no sé si lo traducí muy bien. What dictionary do I use? I use many dictionaries, and you should, I guess your name was Christina. Christina, go on season 1, I think it's episode 9, where I made a specific lecture on just how to use the dictionaries. So you could go find out the 4 best dictionaries that I use. But in summary, I use a program called Personal Lexicon, which generally has almost everything that you need. But I also use other dictionaries that have other functions. But go watch episode 9, which is specifically on how to use the dictionary. On season 1, episode 9. I know English. My daughter is in Mexico, Puebla, and I'm in California. That's why I'm interested in learning and pronouncing. Oh, okay, Isabella. Well, I hope that you got my bilingual my bilingual response to your question. And I hope that I answered it well for you. All right. Any other Tlatlanilistli? Any other questions? You can do live questions, but if you do live questions, just know you're going to be recorded. So be okay with that if you want to be recorded. If not, just type it in the chat.
Okay, I have a quick question. I know I have to go back to the beginning, which I will, but I just want to know, how do you say beautiful?
Beautiful? There's 2 ways to say beautiful. One of them is yehyeksin. I'll spell it out for you. Yehyeksin. Yehyektzin. 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 Some varieties of Nahuatl don't pronounce the final N, so they might say yehyetzi. Yehyetzi. And it comes from the word yektli, and the word yektli means like pure or good. So yehyektzin means like really, really, really good, or really, really, really pure. So yehyektzin, it means beautiful as the adjective. And then that's how they generally say it in Huasteca. But if you want to say it in other varieties, you might hear them say cuacualtzin, 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 cuacualtzin. And it also means really, really good. If you know the word for Nahuatl, which is cuali, means good, well, cuacualtzin means really, really good. Cuacualtzin. So yehyektzin or cuacualtzin, they both mean beautiful. As the
Is there also like cuali?
Cuali?
Yeah.
I haven't heard it, but I wouldn't be surprised if that was a way to say it, because it just, like I said, the root of this means like good, good, very, very good.
Okay, thank you so much.
Maybe, yeah, cuacuali might be acceptable.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Ashley. Any other Tlatlanilistli? Say your Tlatlanilistli. Someone says Tlazocamati Diego, or would I say Diegotzin? You could call me Diego or Diegotzin. It's up to you. Do you want to treat me with respect or not? Do you like me or not like me? Okay. I hope the answer is you do, and you call me Diego. But it's up to you. I don't care. I don't get hung up on things like that. That's me, personally.
Temastike nikpia se tlatlanilistli. The word huanya, is that possessed?
Yes. So ihuanya means with somebody, like with a person, right? So ihuanya means I am with you, like you as a person. So it basically means with, and that I don't know if you call it a preposition or not. I guess it is. With is the preposition. Those prepositions in Nahuatl are generally possessed. So if you want to say with me, you would say no huanya, no huaya, or they say no huaya, no huaya. Mohuaya, mowaya, with you, ihuaya or ihuanya. There's an N there because some varieties say ihuan, so that's why there's an N there. But in Oaxaca they say ihuaya, with him or her, tohuanya or tohuaya, with us, inmohuanya, with y'all, con ustedes, and ininhuanya, with them. But it means with, but with a person, like in their presence.
Tlasakamati.
Mm-hmm. If we are using the dictionary to make sentences and we can't find a word, is it terrible to mix Huasteca and Guerrero? That's a really good question. Some people are going to tell you it's terrible, and some people are going to tell you it's not terrible. I have spoken to native speakers who say, don't mix the varieties. And I'm like, well, what if a word is missing? What do I do? So in my personal opinion, it's fine. But some people who are native speakers will say, don't mix the varieties, don't mix the like the meanings or whatever. But I personally think that it enriches the language, because there's certain varieties of like Guerrero who have like, they have a phrase for something, but Huasteca doesn't, and the Huasteca will just use the Spanish borrowed word. And so in my opinion, I'd rather keep it as a Nahuatl word. So I would rather borrow the word from Guerrero Nahuatl. So in my opinion, it's okay, but I guess there's differing alternatives, opinions to this. It's what I think. So the answer is yes and no. How do you feel? Who do you want to offend today? Or who do you not want to offend today? Okay. So entonces tengo que ver tus primeros videos del principio. Sí, por favor. Es que esta sesión de Nahuatl es como más más avanzada, porque tengo 24 videos donde ya expliqué varios conceptos. Entonces, si vas y ves los primeros videos, vas a entender mucho más en esta clase. Of course, I like you. You are a good temachtiani. Tlazokamati. All right, any other Tlatlanilistli? I hope you like my class. I hope you're excited. And even if you missed the class, you could always watch this recording later. I'm gonna post it, okay? Tlazokamati mia kimo Juan.
Tlasakamati.
Imoitase chicuello, we'll see each other in a week. And shimomokuitlawikan, take care of yourselves.
Timuitase.
Timitase.